there, and welcome to your notes. Oops, sorry about that. Welcome to your notes about principal and interest. So, first thing, please put your computer number, name, date, and period up here. Okay, so let's talk about principal. This is one of those weird words that has a lot of different meanings, and you've probably never heard of it used in regards to money before, but we are learning about money and finance now. So, usually people think of principal as the person who runs a school. In this case, the principal is a noun. It's a thing. Now remember, a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. This is a thing. And it's kind of a weird thing because it could be two jobs. So it could either be money that you lend, which of course is a verb, an action, to a borrower, or it could be money that you borrow, which of course is also an action, a verb, from a lender. So, regardless if you're borrowing or lending, regardless if you're the borrower or the lender, the money that goes between the borrower and lender is called the principal. We're going to use that a lot. Okay. Next word I'd like you to learn is interest. This has nothing to do with interesting, although when you're, when you're receiving interest, it's pretty interesting. Interest is also a noun. It is a thing. It's money. Now again, it has two jobs. It could be money that you receive from a bank or a borrower. It could also be money that you pay to the bank or to the lender. We'll go over this a lot more in a little bit. Let's look at this picture before we move on. So here's the bank. And let's say this is you. And you've got some money. And you deposit it into the bank. Now, technically you are depositing principal into the bank. And now a lot of people don't call it that. But that's what you're doing, is you're lending money to the bank. And when you lend money to someone, they have to pay you interest. That's the way the world works. Now, on the other hand, principal could also be money that you borrow from the bank. And a lot of people call that a loan. But when you borrow money from the bank, you get a loan. It's called principal. You're the borrower, and you've got to pay interest to the bank. Again, that's how it works. So, principal and interest could go to the bank, receive interest from the bank. It could also come from the bank, so you pay interest to the bank. Okay, now that you get that, let's go back here. So, the lender is a person. Remember, a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. And it's usually a person or party. And I say party, I don't mean like, woo, let's party. I mean a party as a group. Oh, like a bank. And it's a lender, this is a really tough one, is a person or party that lends money. Ho-ho. And thinking about our picture, they receive interest. On the other hand, you have a borrower. Again, this is a noun, a person, place, thing, or idea. And that's the person that borrows money. This is rocket science here, guys. A lender lends. A borrower borrows. We're good. And a borrower is the guy, the person, whatever, that gets to pay interest. Lenders receive interest. Borrowers pay interest. Hopefully we're good. Okay, so let's talk about what is a loan. A loan is a noun. It's a thing. And it's just when you lend or borrow money, regardless of which way it's going. Oops, there's a mistake there. And remember, we're not going to call it money. We're going to call it principal, just to be very clear that principal is money you lend or money you borrow. Hey, money you lend or money you borrow. Okay. Speaking of lend versus loan, it depends how you use the word, and I don't want to confuse you guys too much, but a lot of people say, I'm going to loan my brother $10, and they use it as a verb. And that's okay, but it can be a little bit confusing. I would prefer that you guys use the verb lend so it's really clear. I'm going to lend my brother some money. And that way you're going to make sure to use the word correctly. We'll use it a lot in class, so don't stress. Not a big deal. Okay, so let's talk about banks. So looking at this picture, you've got the bank, you've got people depositing money into the bank and receiving interest. You've got people borrowing money from the bank and paying interest. So what banks do is they allow people to deposit their money into the bank, and then the bank pays interest to the depositors. Deposit, bank pays interest. Essentially, customers are lending their principal to the bank, and then they receive interest. On the other hand, some people borrow money from the bank and pay interest to the bank. So, banks can lend money to customers. Customers borrow principal from the bank and pay interest to the bank. So, here's your diagram on the back of your paper. What I'd like you guys to do is copy the arrows and label them clearly. Make sure you really understand how the money is moving. Principal, interest, principal, interest. Lend, borrow, lend, borrow. Okay, take it easy.